Hello and welcome to episode 14 of TE Present Teacher. And today's episode is slightly different. We are going to talk about certain current events or current happenings in the field of education. And of course, we mean AI, or more specifically, generative AI and the LLMs. So, to talk about this, we have Ritu here today. Hi, Ritu.
Hi.
So, everybody and their uncles and aunties have been talking about AI and specifically generative AI. We have consciously stayed away from it. One of the reasons is that it's still an evolving discipline. We are not sure how natural intelligence helps us with learning in the first place, and we are putting a layer of AI on top of that. So I think we've tried to remain away from it, but the amount of information and also misinformation that is out there kind of made us feel that, hey, you know what, we really need to address some of these points, at least if not all of them. So let's see how many points we can address in this. Can we just start by talking about the two, probably let's call them the two extremes of AI and tech that educators are seeing.
Right. So it seems that in the education community all across the world, there seems to be this um, radical optimism that AI is going to change the face of education forever. That every child can now have personalized learning, that assessments can become hyper focused on every child, every data point, and especially the classroom is going to look very, very different thanks to a lot of AI tools. So, on the one hand, there's a lot of optimism that everything is going to change immediately and we've solved the education crisis. But on the other hand, there's also extreme fear among teachers, especially teachers who may not be proficient at even using basic technology, like laptops or slightly complicated apps on the phone, because they don't know what AI is, they don't know what they're supposed to do with it. And there's all of this talk all around them that if you don't adopt AI immediately, you're failing as a teacher. So there's also extreme fear about not being able to adapt quickly enough or not being able to understand this new tech. So these are the two extremes that we're seeing right now, thanks to AI.
Right. And I'm guessing these two extremes will affect students in very different ways. So can we just slightly touch upon that maybe? Let's start with the first one, where there is this hyperbole about and bullishness about what AI can do. Uh, how is that going to affect student and student learning? Um, Especially given that we are not completely sure what AI is going to do with student learning.
So the belief is that personalized learning is here. Every student is going to get a personalized AI tutor who will cater to their every learning need and misconception. Um, but that seems to be very, very far away if we look at it realistically. So while there may be some changes in the way teachers are able to plan their lessons to personalize it to their class as a whole, right now, thanks to the quickness and creativeness of I don't think true personalized learning is going to be here anytime soon.
Right. And
Um,
And I think personalized learning has been sort of the holy grail of all endeavors so far. Um, and just to ask you the next question, that if see there is this tech phobia in teachers, especially in India. Okay, how does AI exacerbate that, and then how does it affect the students then? Um, because the government is trying to push for tech. The government is also trying to push for the use of AI, generative AI, by teachers in government schools. But clearly, we are seeing that it's not the adoption of these things are not very high. How do you think that these students are going to get affected, whose teachers are not really, uh, who are not really bought into this first tech and then the AI itself?
mm, Teachers who are not comfortable with technology or are phobic of all of these new terms, um, they are going to miss out on opportunities to make their work maybe more efficient and again plan better for their students. So there are definitely positives to what LLMs and generative AI can bring to the classroom right now. Um, and that is something that teachers can definitely take advantage of because they're fairly straightforward. But I think I also agree that anything fancier than that, anything more complicated than that, is probably not something that teachers are going to adapt to very quickly. And if the focus is on adapting to that, that is where teachers may probably lose more than they gain. So my opinion is that it needs to be introduced to teachers in a very friendly manner, in a way that they can use on their own every day and get used to that technology, and only then introduce them to anything that requires them to go beyond a few clicks.
Right. And let's not even get into the deeper AI usage for Indian teachers right now, because right now let's just stick to the basic things that you said, that hey, how can I use AI to make my lessons probably more contextualized, maybe find more creative ways of doing something, etc., etc. And when students don't get the exposure to these, newer, creative, more creative ways of learning, I think the students also miss out. I think that's the point that you were trying to make, when teachers miss out on AI as well. So, but that's a good segue for me to ask you this next question, which is, let's move this conversation to a slightly more tangible thing. And I'm going to ask you that, okay, let's talk about what does AI actually bring to the table, for the teachers, for educators, and hence also for the students.
So for this, to answer this question, I think it'll be important for everyone watching and listening to right now just imagine AI as the LLMs that a lot of us are now used to using, like ChatGPT or Bard or Claude or whichever one that you're comfortable with. Um, the most basic form of AI that everyone is now using is something that, again, can tremendously benefit teachers. Um, and here I'm talking first in terms of just being creative, getting a lot of different ideas and creative little bits and pieces that can make the classroom a lot more effective. And an example that's coming to mind is recently we were doing a teacher professional development session with government school teachers in Hyderabad. And we were working with them on language learning in the early years. And one of the topics that we were focusing on was using stories to introduce different letter sounds to kindergarten students. And our curriculum, our unboxed early learning curriculum, obviously has a lot of these stories. Um, but teachers were also wondering if they can create stories for sounds or for letters in the native language of students, which is not something that we obviously readily had available at that point. And I thought that was a really good point to introduce ChatGPT to them. So we got this entire classroom of 30 teachers to download the app, and we modeled for them how to look to prompt the bot and get those answers. And they spent a good 30-45 minutes coming up with different stories, and they really enjoyed it. Mm, and that was it. That nothing more complicated than that was needed at that point for teachers to make their classroom teaching a little more contextual and creative for their kids.
I just wanted to ask you that, so exactly, you could get the context for the students, and I think even if it were a decently creative story, I'm sure that teachers found this entire process very efficient, in the sense of, if they had to write the story or come up with a story themselves, or even look for a story in the library or on the internet, all of those are time consuming things, right? So how did teachers respond to this? Yeah.
It actually happened exactly how you said it, because we started with asking teachers to create their own two-line stories, because we wanted them to go through the process. Even though a lot of these English stories were available in the curriculum books that we gave them, we wanted them to go through the process and understand why these were created the way they were and how they can create it on their own if they need to. And it was a good half an hour. All of them struggled. And there were a couple of volunteers who had come in to observe from an NGO that had organized the session. And they had their phones, they knew how to use ChatGPT, they got it out, they read out their story, and I was very impressed and asked them, how do you do this? This was really, you're the quickest team and you did it so well. And they said, oh no, we used ChatGPT. And that piqued everyone's interest, and that's how we decided to introduce ChatGPT to the teachers. and we asked them to then come up with stories in their own language. And they saw that it took a total of a minute, which really excited them because all the effort and embarrassment that they felt in trying to come up with their own stories was sort of, they saw the difference in speed and confidence.
Right. Um, so one is that you can get these creative things like stories or context or situations which we might use in the classroom. I'm sure that we can also come up with first pass lesson plans also using AI. And now with and I know this for a fact with ChatGPT that it has a bot that is a lesson planning bot as well. So I think those are also very. I mean, are they useful for teachers? Are is it good in any way?
It's definitely good. I think having the most difficult part of lesson planning is starting and coming up with that first flow. It's it's easier for everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean that I've worked with, I know, over 300-400 content creators over my entire career so far, and it's always easier. It has always been easier for them to review others' lesson plans and give more creative ideas, see where the flaws may be, and improve them. But creating your own lesson plan is really tough from scratch. So any sort of lesson plan outline that AI is able to give you is going to be better than the effort that you put in to create your own flow and then improve it based on what your students need, what your context needs. So it's better as long as you are consciously putting an effort into making sure that that lesson plan works for you and for your students.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, some of the things that you're saying are I mean, implying are that your expertise, your experience should not be downplayed. The AI generated thing is just the first draft. You can think of it as the first draft of the lesson or the first draft of what you want to do. Overlay that with your experience, your expertise, your context. Um, and I think a healthy dash of skepticism that, not everything that you find on with ChatGPT or any AI model for that matter may be completely true. So I think that again that goes back to expertise that that okay this is not true, etc. And these are the same, I think, pitfalls that exist even when we thought of the internet and said, oh, internet information, anybody will be able to spread all lies. But now we kind of are learning about how to weed those lies out, and I think a similar process is probably also going to be needed for AI. Um, so I know we touched upon this a little bit earlier, um, and because there is a lot of information out there about personalized learning and AI, I want to you know ask you a little bit more about the potential that generative AI and these LLMs have for personalized learning, and what is probably there in the future.
And potential is the right word because there's definitely a lot of potential for AI to make learning better, more personalized, all of that. But we're not there yet. And I don't think we're going to be there in a long time. And that's because I think the simplest reason is that we as educators have still not completely understood how learning works, what the best teaching practices are. And if we speak specifically of personalized learning, what is it that each student needs differently, uh, done differently, taught differently, explained differently for that learning to happen? This is not something that we figured out on a human to human basis as yet. And so it's only when we figure that out is when we'll be able to transfer that to any sort of AI tool to make true personalized learning happen. And
Right.
that seems to be very far away.
Right. And I understand your point that, first I need the information and then I need to feed that information or data into an AI tool or a machine that will learn from that data. For example, when we look at how students perform in a test and we see that there's a pattern to the misconceptions that the students have, um, the machine can learn that. Once the machine learns that, it can probably, create ways to ensure that that misconception doesn't happen in the student. Now, of course, that in itself, as an isolated thing, is possible today. But what that means for the rest of the misconceptions or the rest of the learning of that same topic is still a black box for us. So I get what you're saying, that we need a lot more information to actually start saying that, okay, this kind of personalized tutoring or AI based personalized tutoring might help. Um, and I mean, I also see the potential in it. But let's be honest that behavioral science has just, I think, started helping out with all the data needed to, tell us where we are with our cognitive science theories, etc. So that's going to take some time probably.
Hi, we have developed an amazing tool to help teachers plan their lessons. TEPS, or Things Education's Pedagogical Strategies. TEPS helps teachers by reducing the time that they spend on planning lessons. TEPS also helps you if you want to try a different pedagogical approach to teaching. So, if you want to know how to teach a topic in a project-based or inquiry-based or even constructivist learning approach, TEPS is for you. TEPS helps even seasoned teachers with fresh ideas on how to teach specific topics. So, scan the QR code on the screen or visit teps.school and join a community of empowered educators. Great teaching begins with TEPS.
So just like personalized learning, which is, has a lot of potential, but we're not there yet. Uh, what are some things I think we should talk about this, because I think this is as important, probably more important than what we have spoken about. We've spoken about what works with AI and education and for educators. I think let's talk about what are some of the things that are not going to work with AI, at least today, in today's day and age, for educators.
One of the biggest arguments against standardized lesson plans so far has been that they don't take context into consideration. And the importance of context has now become more and more obvious and something that is accepted, beginning to be accepted across the world. In India, we can see that textbooks are now beginning to have characters who have brown skin, black hair, look a lot more like us. So the importance of context is undeniable when we're learning, and that's something that AI is not able to do very well because of the kind of data that, say, something like ChatGPT is trained on, which is mostly from Western countries. Specifically in India, it's not very good at contextualizing it to what is happening around us, and that's at a very broad level. Uh, but if you think about a small town in India and a teacher wants a lesson plan or even a story that is contextualized to experiences of children in that town, AI is not going to be able to help there. So that's, I think, again, AI has a long way to go when it comes to contextualization. That's probably one point where it's lagging behind quite a lot.
Right. And I think, and if we look at the education sector now, uh, especially, I mean, I'm not talking about the ed tech and, this newly formed sector 3 days ago, which also went away 2 days later. I'm talking about the education sector where, these long-term players have been there, be it content creators, textbook creators, publishers, etc., who have been there for a long time in this industry. Mm, I think one shift that we are seeing is that their the money that they're investing is no longer on content creators. AI is being able to help with the content creation and getting that first level. Like I said, the first draft of, even if it's a textbook, the first draft is easy to get. What seems to be happening and where a lot of the money is right now is the pedagogical layer on top of the content. How do I present this content in the best possible manner for the students to understand? And that is something that AI can't do. And I think I wanted to say this and I wanted to make this point because it goes back to that personalized learning point that you were trying to make. That if AI is not able to do just this part, where how is it easier for the student to understand? How do I put the information across so that it's easier for the student to understand? If the AI can't do that right now, personalized learning is a little uh, into the future. And I'm not saying that personalized learning should not happen, but there is a need to collect a lot more data, even from natural intelligence, which can then be fed into AI models for the machines to learn better. Okay, so we have spoken about a couple of things that can be done very well by AI, and some things that we are still not there yet. But one thing that we have been able to uh, do, and we have seen different people, different companies and organizations use AI for, is actually monitoring and evaluation. And I'll just give you an example. Um, the example that I used for misconceptions, I think that we can use that. But with generative AI or the language learning models, um, we can actually put a microphone in the class and hear what the teacher says, um, and look at results of students. So I think that aspect of AI, I think, again, has huge potential. Yeah. So based on all of this, I'd like you to, if you can, summarize in a sentence or two, where we are with AI, where we are with tech, and what the future holds.
I'm going to repeat something that you said earlier on in this conversation, that the internet was supposed to change education and solve the education crisis. Before that, it was the television. Before that, it was the radio. Every new technological advancement has led people to believe that we've solved the crisis because we can now reach every learner. But the problem always has been that learning is a social concept. It's a social experience, and it can't be done in a vacuum by a student alone. It needs highly trained teachers who are very engaged, very well equipped with content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge. So, generative AI in any form is not going to solve the education crisis. It's definitely going to empower teachers to do better. Um, and so, it is important for uh, everyone in the education field to start learning how to use basic AI tools, because teachers who are not able to adapt, or who refuse to adapt, or are not given the opportunities to learn these AI tools, are going to fall behind others, because AI does help us in being more creative, being quicker, and definitely creating better and more streamlined lesson plans for our students. So there are definitely advantages to AI, but it's not the magic pill that's going to solve everything.
Thank you. I think that helps a lot. And thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you liked what we spoke about. If there are certain things that you feel about AI, please write them in the comments. And if there are some things that you want us to talk about, please leave your suggestions in the comments. And thank you again for watching. Thank you, Ritu, for this episode.